All right. Now, having finished up with the objective questions, which we did 50 questions as a whole, let's take a look at the theory questions as well. Now, this is question 1. It says, what is a cell? What is a cell? Now, a cell actually can simply be defined as the smallest, simplest, basic, structural, functional, and fundamental unit of life. Now, it is very important to understand that it is also very important to understand that without a cell, there is no life. There is no life apart from the life of a cell. The cell is actually the powerhouse, is actually the basic unit of life. Living organisms are divided into two based on their number of cells. We have what we call unicellular organisms, and we also have what we call multicellular organisms. Cells can also be referred to as the first level of organizations of life. So please take note, we have unicellular organisms, and these are organisms that are made up of just a single cell. Now, they include the examples. We have amoeba, we have paramecium, we have euglena, we have bacteria, most of the protists, as well as those that fall under the kingdom Monera, they are referred to as unicellular organisms. Now, multicellular organisms are actually organisms that are made up of many cells. Now, we have some examples like the fungi. We have some examples like plants, both green plants and non-green plants. And then we have animals, okay? They fall under multicellular organisms. So that is what a cell is. So cell is the basic unit of life. The next question says, name 3 scientists that are associated with the discovery of a cell. Now, so many scientists have come up with several discoveries about a cell. So many of them. In fact, the first person that actually came up with the discovery, the first man to discover a cell, and hence is called the father of cells. Okay, the father of cells. His name is called Robert Hooke. So that's one of the scientists, Robert Hooke. We also have several scientists like Felix Dujardin. We have Matthias Cledin, we have Theodor Swan, we have von Virchow. These are some of the men that came up with several discoveries of the cell. In fact, based on their discovery, scientists have put together what we call the cell theory. The cell theory. One of them is that the cell is the basic and the structural unit of life. One again, another cell theory states that there is no life apart from the life of a cell. All living organisms are made up of cells. All living organisms are made up of cells. Cells can also exist either as unicellular and as multicellular. And another one is that cells come from previously existing cells. Now, most of these discoveries or discussions, this cell theory came from the discoveries, came from the findings of these men. So we have Robert Hooke, we have Theodor Swan, we have Felix Dujardin, we have von Virchow, and so many others. I've given you about 4 or 5 scientists that were associated with the discovery of the cell. Next is make a diagram 6 to 8 cm long of a plant cell and label only the organelle responsible for reproduction. Now, I can't actually draw a plant cell, but I'm going to give you tips on how to carry out diagrams in biology. Now, whenever you're drawing in biology, please take note of some certain important things. They are very important as in terms of the diagram. We have, like you can see in the question there, they said 6 to 8 cm long. Please take note of the size they've given to you. Don't do it below 6, below 6 cm. Your diagram size should not be below 6 cm. Neither should it be above, even slightly above 8 cm is not accepted. Also, please, when they're drawing, ensure that your title is there. Now, if I'm to draw this particular diagram, what is the title of this diagram? It is simply plant cell showing the organelle for cell reproduction. That is the title of this particular diagram. And also, please take note of labelings, neatness of lines, clarity of lines. These are important things to take note of. And as far as this particular question is important, your labels should not be more than one. If you go ahead, start labeling other parts of the plant cell, you are very wrong, because they said you should label only the organelle that is responsible for cell reproduction. Now, organelles that are found in the cell, the plant cell has a cellulose cell wall, and inside of the cellulose cell wall we have the cell membrane. It also, inside the cell membrane, you have the cytoplasm. The cytoplasm consists of several organelles. Now, the organelles you can find in a plant cell, we have a large centrally placed nucleus, food vacuoles, very large, a large food vacuoles. It also has a nucleus. It also has lysosomes. It has a chloroplast. It has ribosome. It also have the endoplasmic reticulum, and so many organelles that are found in. It also has the mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of the cell that generates energy for the plant cell. So these are some of the organelles that are found inside the plant cell. Now the question is, what is the organelle responsible for cell reproduction? Now, the organelle responsible for cell reproduction is the nucleus. Now, why is it so? The nucleus contains, what is the purpose for reproduction? To produce new individuals. And production of new individuals has to do with the transfer of genetic traits, or you can say the transfer of nucleic traits from parents to their offsprings. And these traits or these genes are carried in the nucleus of a cell. The nucleus of a cell carries what we call chromosomes. And these chromosomes carries genes. And inside of these genes are the genetic traits that can be passed from parents to their offspring. So the part or the organelle responsible for cell reproduction in plants is called the nucleus. It is the nucleus. So while drawing it, ensure you label only the nucleus. Next question. Name one blood cell in humans that does not have the organelle labeled below. Now, this is what they expected from you in terms of your labeling. Now, as you can see in this particular question, they only labeled the nucleus. You can see the large centrally placed food vacuoles, and you can also see other organelles that are found around it. You can see the cell wall, which is the outer part of the plant cell. That's the cell wall, the outer part of the plant cell. Now, let's go back to this question. Name one blood cell in humans that does not have the organelle responsible for cell reproduction. That is, that does not have the nucleus. Now, the blood cell, we have about 3 different types of blood cells. We said we have the red blood cells, we have the white blood cells, we have the platelets, okay? The platelets. Another name for the platelets is the thrombocytes, and I told you their major functions is for blood clotting. We have the white blood cells, another name for it is the leukocytes, and their major function is for defense. They produce antibodies that helps to defend the body against diseases or harmful microorganisms. And then also another definition for another type of blood cell is the red blood cells, also known as the erythrocytes. Now, if you look at the structure of the red blood cells, the red blood cells, they are small disc-like structures, okay? They are small and they are disc-like, small and disc-like. Now, the red blood cell is actually the blood cells that do not have organelle, that do not have nucleus. It doesn't have nucleus. The white blood cells, they have nucleus. In fact, they are large and they are nucleated. The red blood cells, they are small and also spherical. While the white blood cells, they are not spherical, they are amoeboid in shape. Also, the platelets are actually smaller than the red blood cells, but they are nucleated. So the only one that is not nucleated, one of the blood cells that is not nucleated, is actually the red blood cells. Next question. What is the biological implication of red blood cells not possessing the organelle responsible for cell reproduction? What is the biological implication? Now, remember we said that the red blood, the nucleus, one of the major functions of the nucleus is for reproduction, okay, for reproduction. Now, if the red blood cells do not have, if the red blood cells do not have nucleus, it simply means that its ability to reproduce new cell is reduced, and also it has a low or very short lifespan. That's what it means. It has a very short lifespan. It has a very short lifespan. So it does not stay for a very long time. And the red blood cells indeed has a very short lifespan. I think about 120 days. Okay, so that is the lifespan of the red blood cells because of the absence of the nucleus. So there is no transfer of any traits. Nothing is being transferred, and it's not a reproductive cell. Okay, next, list 6 organelles found in a plant cell. I have just mentioned this. There are several organelles that are found in a plant cell. We have the nucleus, which we have just been discussing so far. We said that the plant cell consists of the nucleus, and the nucleus is actually functions in terms of hereditary function, carries out hereditary function. And then we also have number 2, we have the mitochondria. The mitochondria, I told you, it is actually the powerhouse of the cell. The powerhouse of the cell is the mitochondria. We also have the lysosomes. The lysosomes. So they contain mostly lytic enzymes. They also help to break down complex molecules that are found in the cell. So that's the function of the lysosomes. We also have the ribosomes, which is number 4. One of the functions of the ribosomes is for synthesis of protein, synthesis of protein. We also have the food vacuoles. The food vacuoles is where most times food is being stored in the cells. They are being stored in the food vacuoles. And then also number 6, we have the chloroplast. We have the chloroplast. One of the major functions of the chloroplast is that it contains chlorophyll that is actually responsible for photosynthesis. So these are 6 organelles that are found in the plant cell. We also have the Golgi bodies. We also have the endoplasmic reticulum and so many other things that are found in the plant cells. Also, we have the cell membrane. We have the cell walls. These are some of the things found, or organelles that are found in the plant cell. Next, question 2. It said, complete the table below by ticking the appropriate group to which each of the listed plants or listed elements required by plants belong, where they belong. Now, this brings us to mineral requirements in plants. Now, plants require minerals for healthy growth and actually development of the plant, of most young plants. They require minerals. In fact, for growth to take place, minerals must be in place. Minerals must be in place. Now, these minerals are actually divided into 2. Minerals required by plants are divided into 2. We have the ones we call the micro elements, and then we have the macro elements. Micro elements can also be called trace elements. They can also be called trace elements. Now, micro elements, the reason why they are called micro elements is because they are required in small quantities by plants. required in small quantities by plants. Now, let's do a little ticking. Before we go for the ticking, we also have the second type of minerals required by plant. They are called the macro elements, or you can call them essential nutrients. Now, macro elements are actually elements that are required in large quantities by plants for healthy growth and development. They are required by plants in large quantities. Now, we have several examples of macro elements and micro elements. Now, hydrogen is not a macro element. Hydrogen is a macro element. It is actually required by plants in large quantity. So if we're to tick, we're going to tick macro elements for hydrogen. Copper is not a macro element. Copper is not a macro element, but a micro element. It is required by plants in small quantity. Required by plant in small quantity. Magnesium is required by plants in large quantity. So magnesium falls under the group of macro element. Macro, not micro. Macro. Zinc falls under the group of micro elements. They are required in small quantities. Phosphorus falls under the group of macro elements. They are required in large quantities. Manganese falls under the group called micro elements because they are required in small quantities. Boron is also required in small quantities. So they are grouped under micro elements. Nitrogen is required in large quantities. Carbon is required in large quantities. And oxygen is also required in large quantities. So these are the various groups of micro elements as well as macro elements. The next one says, state three differences between dentition of a herbivore, and a carnivore. Now, what is a herbivore? Herbivores are actually mammals that feed on plants. They derive nutrients from plants only, not from animals. They derive nutrients from plants only. While carnivores are actually organisms or mammals that derive nutrients from animals only. That is, they feed on only animals. Now, these are what we call, holozoic. They are under heterotrophic nutrition. Now, heterotrophic nutrition simply has to do with the inability of of living organisms, mostly animals, to manufacture their own food. They can't, so they depend on other organisms for food. They depend on plants, also they depend on other animals. So now we have different types of holozoic nutrition, heterotrophic nutrition. One of them is called holozoic. We also have parasitic nutrition. We have saprophytic nutrition. We also have carnivorous insects. Is a mode of nutrition. It's also carnivorous plants and all that. Now, herbivores, carnivores, and omnivores, they fall under holozoic. So there are some organisms or mammals or animals that feed only on plants. There are some that feed only on animals, and there are some that feed both on plants and animals. Omnivores, they feed on both plants and animals. Herbivores feed on only plants. Carnivores feed on only animals. Now, what are their differences based on dentition? Now, before we continue, what is dentition? Dentition is simply the arrangement and the conformation of teeth in the mouth. Of course, you know that the dentition helps, or in fact describes a bit, or helps us understand more of the mode of nutrition for herbivore as well as what? Carnivore. Yes, it does. In fact, it is also an adaptive features for them. Okay, so it is the arrangement and the conformation of teeth in the mouth of an organism, mostly an animal. Now, differences. Number one difference between a herbivore and a carnivore is that in a herbivore, there is absence of canine. There is absence of canine in a herbivore, but there is presence of canine in a carnivore. Now, what is canine? Canine is a type of teeth. In fact, we have about 4 types of teeth in animals or in mammals. We have the incisor, which is the front side of the teeth. Okay, we have the canine, and the incisor is actually used for gripping and for cutting of food. The canine is used for tearing of flesh from bones. Then we have the premolar and molars, which are used for grinding. Now, if you look at the structure of the incisor is chisel shape. Okay, it is used for cutting. Then the canine at the edge, it is sharp and pointy. That is why it is used for tearing of flesh. Now, in terms of a herbivore, one difference, like I said, in herbivore, if you check the mouth path of a herbivore, there is absence of canine. Why? They don't need it. They feed on only grasses. So absence of canine in herbivore, but there is presence of canine in a carnivore. Now, also in a herbivore, they have what we call diastema. Diastema. Now, diastema is a kind of a modification of teeth in the mouth of a herbivore. So diastema is present in a herbivore. Diastema is actually that space. It's not just the absence. It's that space in the canine. It is used for the manipulation of grasses in the mouth of a herbivore. Okay? So there is presence of diastema in a herbivore, but there is absence of diastema in a carnivore. And number 3, in a herbivore, there is absence of what we call the carnassial teeth. Carnassial teeth. Now, in a carnivore, there is presence of carnassial teeth. Now, how is the carnassial teeth formed? It is formed between the last premolar of the upper jaw and the first molar of the lower jaw. First molar of the lower jaw and the last last molar of the premolar at the upper jaw and first molar of the lower jaw, they join together to form what we call the carnassial teeth. And you can only see it in a carnivore and not in a herbivore. Only in a carnivore. Now, what is the function of the carnassial teeth? It is actually for cracking of bones. It is used for crushing bones. It is also used for chewing and crushing of bones. So these are 3 differences we can spot out between dentition of a herbivore and as well as the dentition of a carnivore. Next question. State 4 differences between dentition of human and a goat. Now, humans belong to omnivores, so they feed on both plants and as well as animals. While goats, they are herbivores. They feed only on plants. Now, what are the differences between these 2 organisms based on their dentition? Now, in terms of a man or humans, humans do not have what we call dental pad at the upper jaw. They don't have dental pad at the upper jaw. But in goats, you find dental pads at the upper jaw. If you check the upper jaw of a goat, there's nothing, there's no teeth there, but you see something like a pad there. They can use it to grip leaves. Okay, so they have dental pad at the upper jaw, but in humans rather, there is no dental pad. Also in humans, there is presence of canine, but in terms of a goat, there is absence of canine. Also in humans, there is absence of diastema, and then in a goat, there is presence of diastema. So these are some of the differences between dentition in humans and also dentition in a goat. Okay? Dentition in a goat. The next one. We have what are milk teeth? What are milk teeth? Now, in mammals, we have what we call sets of teeth. Sets of teeth. All through the life of a mammal, there are two sets of teeth. We have what we call the milk teeth, and then we have the one we call the permanent teeth. The milk teeth can also be referred to as the temporary teeth. Okay? Now, milk teeth are teeth that can be replaced when they fall off. They can be replaced when they fall off. They consist mostly of the incisor, canine, and partially, not all premolars, but some premolar. They consist, again, I repeat, of the incisor, they consist of the canine, and then some of the premolars. Then in terms of the permanent teeth, when they fall off, they cannot be replaced. They cannot be replaced when they fall off. Now, they consist of, mostly you find the permanent teeth in adults, okay, in adults. And then the milk teeth, you find them mostly in infants, growing up mammals. You find them in infants. And in terms of the permanent teeth, it consists of incisor, it consists of canine, it consists of premolars as well as the molars. That's what makes up the permanent teeth. So that is that for what milk teeth means. Next question. What is an ecological niche? What is ecological niche? Now, ecological niche can simply be referred to as the specific portion in a habitat where living organisms can be found and the roles those living organisms play in that particular habitat. I repeat it again, it is the specific portion in a particular habitat where an organism can be found and the roles that those organisms play in a particular habitat. For instance, I can have a palm tree, that particular place where that palm tree is situated in that habitat is referred to as its ecological niche. Also, not just only where it is located, but the function it plays, the role it plays in that particular habitat, in that particular spot where it is found, is what we refer to as ecological niche. Note that ecological niche is one of the ecological terms we use in the study of ecology. Okay? Now, the next question we have here is state 5 roles played by a mango tree in its ecological niche. Remember, we said that ecological niche is the specific area where these organisms or a particular organism is found, okay, the specific portion, and the role it plays in that particular area. Now, 5 roles played by a mango tree in its ecological niche. Number 1 is that these mango trees, they serve as a source of food, for other organisms that are found there. Number 2, it serves as a source of shelter. Okay, for organisms that are also found around there. Most organisms like the birds and other arboreal organisms, they take shelter in these mango trees. And number 3, they can also serve as a source of fuel for man and some other organisms. They can serve as a source of fuel. And number 4, they can also improve, apart from this, they can also improve in the atmosphere. Now, by this, remember that mango trees are actually green plants. They are green plants. So they can absorb carbohydrate. They help to purify the atmosphere. That's just the best thing to say. Help to purify the atmosphere by increasing the level of oxygen. So they take in carbon dioxide, carry out photosynthesis, and one of the byproducts of photosynthesis is oxygen that is being released back into the atmosphere. So they also help to purify the atmosphere by increasing the amount of oxygen in the atmosphere. And number 5, most of the fallen leaves from the trees can decay, and when they decay, they add or help to improve the soil fertility. And then also number 6, they can serve as canopies, or apart from that, they can also be used to prevent erosion, probably water erosion, wind erosion, okay? They help to protect the soil by not leaving it bare. These are 6 roles played by a mango tree in its ecological niche. Remember, it is the specific portion they occupy and the roles they play that defines an ecological niche. And then next question, state 2 reasons why ecologists use sampling technique in population studies. I'm just going to give you two things very quickly. Number 1 is that counting them one after the other can be so exhausting. Imagine you going to count each plant, each grass. It's going to be so exhausting, or counting each organisms you see. That is going to be so exhausting. And number 2 reason is that it is also time consuming. Counting is time consuming. It wastes a lot of time. So these are 2 important reasons why ecologists prefer using sampling methods for population studies. Sampling methods. Remember, we have 2 types of majorly 2 methods we can carry out population studies. We have the transect method, and then we also have the sampling method or technique. Then we have the next one. They said state 4 examples of sampling techniques used in population studies. 4 examples. Number 1 example is the quadrat method. We have the quadrat method. We also have the light trap method. Yes, we have the sweep net method. We also have the tall green funnel method. These are 4 important sampling techniques used in population studies. I repeat, we have the quadrat, we have the sweep net, we have the light trap method, we also have the tall green funnel method. These are 4, there are so many of them, but these are just 4 methods for sampling. And then next question says, name 4 types of fingerprints in humans. Types of fingerprints in humans. Now, fingerprints can also be classified as a physiological variation. Can also be seen as a physiological variation. And remember, I said that physiological variation has to do with changes, observable changes or differences based on reaction to environment, or can be also based on function or behavior, okay, that differentiates between organisms of the same species. And fingerprints can also be included as a physiological variation. It can also be included as a morphological variation, but not a continuous variation, but more of a morphological variation. Now, the types of fingerprints. Now, we have the arch method, ARCH. We have the loop method, or the loop fingerprint, rather, instead of method. We have the arch fingerprint. We have the loop fingerprint, which is LOOP. We have the compound fingerprint, and then we have the whorl, WHORL, whorl fingerprint. These are the 4 types of fingerprints we have. Please check up the structure of what it looks like and find out what fingerprints you also have. Next question. Name the plant used by Gregor Mendel in his experiment. Now, the plant used by Gregor Mendel in his experiment is the garden pea plant. Garden pea plant. Now, the scientific name for garden pea plant is Pisum sativum. Pisum sativum. Garden pea plant. That's the plant he used for his experiment. Next question says, state 2 reasons why the plant named pea plant was used. Now, why did he use the garden pea plants? 2 reasons. Now, number 1 reason why he used the garden pea plants is because the garden pea plant is bisexual flower, has a bisexual flower. And because it has a bisexual flower, it could undergo self-pollination. That's 1. Number 2, he also discovered that the garden pea plant showed distinct observable characteristics, physical distinct characteristics. You can see some of them are red, some of them are white, some of them they are tall, they are short, some species are short, some species are tall. So he could work with several garden pea plants with different distinct characters. Okay, that was one of the reasons why he decided to make use of the garden pea plant. Another thing again, reason why he made use of the garden pea plant, that's number 3, is that they have a short life cycle. Short life cycle. So they, in other words, when he plants them, they quickly grow up and then they die, and all the same process continues again, so that his study or his experiment will not take so much long period of time for him to achieve his aim. Okay, so these are 3 important reasons why Gregor Mendel made use of the garden pea plant for his experiment or in his experiment. Number 1, it is because they have a very short lifespan. Number 2, they have distinct colors, okay, observable color, so I said distinct colors, distinct observable characters that are very physical and very good. And number 3 is because they are bisexual flowers that can undergo self-pollination. They can undergo self-pollination. Next, what are conservation laws? Now, conservation laws are actually rules and regulations that governs the judicious use of natural resources in order to ensure their continuous availability. I repeat, I said they are rules or regulations, or you can call them guidelines, that are used or that are put in place to ensure the judicious use of natural resources and also their continuous availability. Okay, so that is what we call conservation laws. There are so many conservation laws, so many conservation laws. Now, the next question says, state 3 conservation laws. State 3 conservation laws. There are so many conservation laws. One is for every 1 tree you fall down, you plant another. You see that mostly effective in developed countries. For every 1 tree you fall down, you plant at least 2 in each state. So that is also a conservation law. Another conservation law is the law against poaching. Law against poaching and illegal hunting. Against poaching and illegal hunting. And now next one, though, that one is already made mention of, which I said, falling down trees, you plant another one. That's indiscriminate deforestation or felling down of trees. Another one, again, law against bush burning. Law against bush burning. These are 3 important laws that have been put against, that have been put as conservation laws. Conservation laws in most countries, and is still effective till today. Next question says, state 2 reasons why animals are poached. Why do people go for poaching? I said to you, poaching can be referred to as illegal hunting. Illegal hunting. People going out, killing endangered species, killing animals for their own personal gains. Now, what are the reasons why people go about poaching animals? Number 1 is that one of the reasons is that these animals are source of food. People eat from them. They take them as source of what? Food. Another one, again, another reason is for sports. Another reason for poaching is for sports. They get these animals and they use them for sports. Another one, again, it's actually for to sell their body parts, which are very, very, is also lucrative for them. They make serious money from it. They sell their body parts like their hoofs, their horns, their hides, which is their skin. They sell it for so much as to make money, okay? So these are some of the reasons why people go about carrying out poaching or doing illegal hunting. Okay, one I said it is for as a source of food. Another one again is for sports. Another one is to make money through selling their parts, their body parts, such as the horns. You have the tusk. You have the hides of some of these animals are being sold for actually a large sum of money. So these are some of the reasons why animals are being poached. And then we also have name 5 animals that are commonly poached. There are so many animals. We have the elephants, we have the giraffe, we have the lions, we have the tiger, we have the deer, we have the hippopotamus. So many of them are being poached. So these, I've given you 6 animals that are being poached. So we have the elephants and so on. They are animals regularly poached in the forest or in wildlife. Then also, next question says, state 4 effects of excessive use of the forest. 4 effects of excessive use of the forest. Now, if the forest is used so much, that brings about a case called deforestation. In fact, one of the effects is that it leads to desertification. Now, desertification is actually the transformation of a vegetative piece of land into a desert state-like environment. That is, it is encroaching into a desert. So one of the negative effect of excessive use of the forest is desertification. Another one is that it leads to soil erosion. It leads to soil erosion because the more you keep removing these trees and grasses everywhere, you are actually leaving the soil bare at the mercy of agents of erosion, which are mostly wind and water. Number 3, effect of deforestation, of excessive use of the forest is that it can also lead to global warming. Of course, the forest, mostly made up of trees, they make use of the carbon dioxide. They help to reduce the carbon dioxide level in the atmosphere. So if you remove them, they will thereby help, they won't be available actually to reduce the carbon dioxide level. And in so doing, the carbon dioxide level will be increased in the atmosphere. And of course, carbon dioxide is referred to as a greenhouse gas. And carbon dioxide is one of the major causes of global warming. And of course, you know what global warming is all about. When global warming comes, there will be ice melting and as well as flooding, and which will definitely lead to loss of lives as well as what? Properties. All right, so that's number 3. It can lead to global warming. And then number 4, if you remove the forest, you are actually removing the shelter of most living organisms, most animals. In fact, these forests is where they use the forest as a source of food and also source of shelter. So removing it or excessively using the forest, that's thereby cutting them down or felling them down consistently, can lead to migration of these animals and also the extinction or the death of these animals. So these are 4 negative effects of excessive use of the forest. Excessive use of the forest. Next question said, explain the following terms. Explain the following terms. Now, what are the following terms? We have blood transfusion. Now, what is blood transfusion? Blood transfusion is actually the administration of blood from a healthy individual or person to someone that needs it. From a healthy individual or person to someone that needs it. And I have said this, that when transfusing blood to another person, care must be taken. Like we said, a healthy individual. Also, there must be also a check on the compatibility of the blood, whether the blood is compatible with the person that is receiving it. Now, we have different blood groups. You should know which one is compatible with the person that needs the blood, the person's own blood group. So know which one is compatible with the person's own blood group. Like we said before, the blood group O is a universal donor, can give to blood group A, can give to blood group B, blood group O, as well as blood group AB. And then someone with blood group A can give to someone with blood group A and AB, but can only receive from blood group O and A. Someone with blood group B can give to someone with blood group B and AB, but can only receive from blood group O and B. And then someone with blood group AB is a universal recipient. It can receive from every other blood group, but it can only give to its own blood group. The same thing with the universal donor, can give to every blood group, but can only receive from blood group O. So that is what blood transfusion is all about. The next one is antigens. Now, antigens are actually proteins, substances which are usually proteins in nature. They are found at the surface of red blood cells. Now, one of their major functions is to stimulate the production of antibodies. Now, antibodies, like we know, are their major function is mostly for defense against foreign invaders or the invasion of micro or harmful microorganisms into the body. So antigens are responsible also for the production of antibodies. Next question, question 5. State 3 differences between the alimentary canal of etworm and cockroach. Now, what is alimentary canal? The alimentary canal is actually, I can call it a pathway through which digestion takes place. A pathway through which digestion takes place. Now, several organisms have their own alimentary canal. There is alimentary canal even in planaria. Tapeworm doesn't have any alimentary canal simply because it lives or resides in the intestine of its host. So it just absorbs whatever has been digested, so it doesn't carry out, it needs no organ for digestion to take place. We also have alimentary canal in etworm. We also have alimentary canal in grasshopper, cockroach, even in birds, as well as also in humans. Now, differences between the alimentary canal of an earthworm and that of a cockroach. Now, number one is that the cockroach has a kind of a mouth part that is made up of mandibles and maxillae. Its mouth part is made up of mandibles and maxillae. But in terms of an earthworm doesn't have mandibles and maxillae. Remember, the mouth is also part of the alimentary canal. So in the mouth of a cockroach, it is modified with mandibles, maxillae, labium, labrum, but it is absent in terms of an earthworm. Also, in a cockroach, you see there is presence of tyalin, salivary gland. In a cockroach, the cockroach has salivary gland, but in terms of the earthworm, they do not possess salivary gland. Also, a cockroach possesses what we call the Malpighian tubules. The Malpighian tubules, but in terms of an earthworm, there is absence of Malpighian tubules. So these are three important differences between the alimentary canals of earthworm as well as that of a cockroach. Next question says, state 3 similarities between the alimentary canal of earthworm and a cockroach. State 3 similarities between the alimentary canal of earthworm and a cockroach. Now, looking at an earthworm, similarities. They both have mouths. Number 2, they both have what we call crop. A crop is where food is stored temporarily. So there is presence of crop in earthworm. There is also presence of crop in a cockroach. Also, there is also presence, both of them, they have gizzards. There is presence of gizzard in an earthworm, and there is also presence of gizzard in a cockroach. The gizzard is mostly, the major function of the gizzard is for grinding of food. Grinding of food. In a bird, the gizzard is called the glandular stomach. So in earthworm and also in cockroach, there is presence of what? Gizzard. So these are 3 important similarities between the alimentary canals of earthworm as well as that of a cockroach. Now, if you look at the structure we have there, they said the diagram below is an illustration of a biological cycle. Study it and answer the questions below. Answer the questions below. Name the biological cycle. Now, if you look very properly at this biological cycle, you can agree with me that this is referring to water cycle. Now, it has nothing to do with carbon cycle. It also has nothing to do with oxygen cycle. It has nothing also to do with nitrogen cycle. You can also see the rain falling down. You can also see arrows taking water up, and then it comes down as rain. But what is water cycle? It is simply the continuous circulation of water in nature. I keep telling people that nutrient cycling is very easy to understand this. It is simply the exchange of some elements or nutrients between the atmosphere and the earth. That's all it is. The same thing with the water cycle. It's simply an exchange between water, or this exchange of water between the atmosphere and the earth. It simply has to do with water going to the atmosphere and water returning back to the atmosphere. All you just need to note is processes that are involved for water to go to the atmosphere and processes that are involved for water to come down to from the atmosphere back to the earth. So that is water cycle, okay? Next question says, the diagram below is an illustration of a biological cycle. Study it and use it to answer the question. Explain briefly 3 roles played by plants and animals in the cycle. Very important. Now, one of the roles played by animals and plants is respiration. Now, during respiration, we take in oxygen, or the normal layman's knowledge of respiration, we take in air and we bring out air. Now, one of the byproducts of oxygen is carbon dioxide as well as water vapor. So that water returns back to the atmosphere. So one of the roles animals and plants play in water cycle is respiration, okay? They give water to the atmosphere. Another process is transpiration. Now, transpiration is the loss of water from the leaf of a plant to the atmosphere in form of water vapor. So plants lose water from time to time in order to cool their environment. Excess water is being lost through the stomata of a cell. So transpiration through the leaves of plants is also one of the processes or one of the roles played by plants in water cycle. And then finally, number 3 is perspiration or sweating. Now, when we sweat, when we perspire, we also remove water. That's also another role plants and animals, mostly animals, play in water cycle. So we have that as sweating or perspiration. Okay. Next question. Name the process that occur in X, Y, and Z. Now, if you look at X, X is If you look at the arrow, it is pointing towards the cloud. Remember, Y is also pointing towards X. Look at also the labeled part Z. It is moving from a water and going to the cloud also. So in other words, what we're trying to say for Z and Y, what is happening is evaporation. Evaporation is actually the conversion of water is the conversion of a substance from the liquid state to the gaseous state. Conversion of a substance from the liquid state to the gaseous state. So you see that occurring in both Y and Z. Now, the process that occurs in X, the water vapor, which is a gas, as it's getting to the atmosphere, once it gets to the atmosphere, it turns or changes from the liquid state, from the gaseous state back to the liquid state. Please note, for Y and Z, it is moving from the liquid state to the gaseous state. That is, it is now becoming a water vapor from liquid to gaseous, and that process is called evaporation. But for X, it is moving from the gaseous state and turning back to the liquid state in the clouds. And when it is full, we know it falls down as rain. So from gaseous to liquid state, we call that condensation. So the processes that occur in X is condensation, in Y is evaporation, and then in Z is also evaporation. Now, let's take a look at this particular question. We have complete the table below. Now, under this table or in this table, we have organ associated with excretion in humans. We also have 3 diseases each that affects the organs, diseases that affect these organs. Now, the excretory organs, we have a lot of them. We have the kidney, we have the liver, we have the lungs, we have the skin. These are excretory organs in humans. But I'm going to just take 2 of them. Let's look at the kidney and the liver. So let's look at the first one, kidney. The kidney, let's look at diseases that affects the functioning of the kidney. Number 1 is the kidney stone. Kidney stone. It is actually an outgrowth, that occurs within the tubules of the kidney. And this outgrowth makes urination to be actually difficult, passing out of urine, and it also causes pains, Treatments can also be administered to help anyone that is having such an issue. Another kidney disease is what we call kidney nephritis. Kidney nephritis. Now, kidney nephritis is actually caused by an inflammation of the Bowman's capsule. And of course, you know, inflammations are actually microbial infections, microbial infections on the Bowman's capsule. And once it happens, it makes ultrafiltration not to be effective. And so when the person is passing out urine, you'll find traces of nutrients found inside of the urine of the person. So it is actually not good. Kidney nephritis. And number 3 is kidney diuresis. Kidney diuresis. This is when one passes out dilute and frequent urine. Urine is always very, very dilute. Kidney diuresis. And the next organ is the liver. The liver. The liver is one of the organs that works, I'll call it the engine room of the body. It works tirelessly, the liver. And it's also an excretory organ found in humans. Some of the diseases of the kidney, of the liver, one of them is cirrhosis of the liver. Cirrhosis, liver cirrhosis. Now, liver cirrhosis is caused by excessive drinking of alcohol over a very long period of time. It causes deformation of the liver and so many other things. And some remedy can be made, but if it is if it has gone so bad, I think liver transplant can be suggested. Okay. Another type of liver disease is liver cancer. And of course, you know, cancer is an abnormal growth found in any organ of the body. So there is every possibility of liver cancer. And then the next one is we have liver cirrhosis, we have liver cancer, we also have diabetes mellitus. That is when the liver is actually unable to regulate the amount of sugar in the blood. You know, when the sugar in the blood is in excess, that is, glucose is excess in the blood, the kidney plays a major role of converting this excess glucose into glycogen with the help of a hormone called insulin. It stores it in the liver. And so when the level of sugar in the blood reduces, the kidney, with the help of another hormone called glucagon, it converts or reconverts the glycogen back to glucose so that the body can make use of it to generate energy. But however, there are some certain cases where the liver is unable to carry out this function, and also insulin is not being produced from the pancreas. It causes a disease we know as diabetes. Also, another disease that is caused by that it happens and affects the liver is hepatitis. So these are some of the diseases that affect these organs. Also, in terms of the skin, we have, if I may add a little of the skin, we have the scabies, we have the ringworm, we have eczema. These are some of the diseases that affects the skin. In terms of the lungs, we also have lung cancer. Okay, when someone is exposed so much to cigarette smoking and all those that, it causes lung cancer. We also have the bronchitis, which is also a kind of disease that affects the lungs. We also have the asthma, which is also related to bronchitis that affects the lungs, okay, respiratory disease. All right, moving to the next question. What is decay of organic matter? What is decay of organic matter? Another name for decay of organic matter is called decomposition. Decomposition. Now, decay of organic matter is the process by which living organisms, which are organic matters, are broken down into simple forms and then absorbed by some organisms as well as plants. Broken down. They are broken down. Complex organic matter is broken down. That's what we call decay. And it is carried out by organisms we call decomposers. Decomposers. They carry out decomposition or decay. Now, it said name two groups of organisms that cause decay of organic matter. Remember I said that decay of organic matter is also known as decomposition. And decomposition can be carried out by decomposers. And I told you decomposition has to do with the breaking down of organic matter into simple substances that can be absorbed by plants and other decomposers, okay, as food or nutrients. And we have two types of decomposers. We have one we call micro decomposers. They cannot be seen easily with the naked eyes or cannot be seen with the naked eyes. And then we have the macro decomposers that can be seen with the naked eyes, but though they are tiny. Now, if we're looking at types of, I'm going to give two types of micro decomposers as well as two types of macro decomposer. Now, for micro decomposers, we have virus. Virus is bacteria rather. Bacteria is a micro decomposer, And then we also have some fungi like the yeast. They are also referred to as micro decomposers. We also have, to an extent, some of the fungi. They are referred to like the rhizopores. They can be referred to as micro decomposers. And then in terms of macro decomposers, we have the termites, we have mushrooms, we have even earthworms. They are referred to as macro decomposers. Okay? Then we have the next question, which says, state one other factor that causes decay. There are several factors that causes decay, several abiotic factors. We have temperature, we have relative humidity, we have oxygen. I've given you three. These are three factors that can cause decay. Temperature, oxygen. We also have relative humidity, that is amount of moisture or water in the atmosphere. These can cause decay. And then next question, name the biological cycle that involves decay. Now, biological cycles or nutrient cycles where you can notice decay mostly is in nitrogen cycle. Yes, nitrogen cycle. You experience decay. You experience decompositions where you have denitrification and nitrification, ammonifications. They are all part of nitrogen cycle. You can also see decay or decomposition in carbon cycle and to an extent in oxygen cycle, because the opposite of what happens in carbon cycle is what takes place in oxygen cycle. So you can see it in nitrogen cycle, you can see it in carbon cycle, and to an extent you can also see it in oxygen cycle. Explain briefly the mode of nutrition in carnivorous plants. Now, carnivorous plants are actually plants that are found in areas that are poor in or found in soil that are poor in nitrogen, okay? And they are found to derive nitrogen not from the soil but from other plants as well as insects or small animals, okay? So they derive their proteins from plants, from insects, and then also from other small animals. Now, there is a way they carry out this mode of feeding or mode of nutrition. An example of a carnivorous plant, we have the sundew, we have the Venus flytrap, we have the bladderwort. These are some of the plants that carry out that are referred to as carnivorous plants. They are referred to as carnivorous plants. Now, how do they do this? Once they trap a particular insect or small animal, they immediately secrete enzymes to digest it extracellularly. And once digestion takes place, they begin to absorb the nutrients from these digested animals or insects. I repeat again, I said they trap, okay? They trap probably when a particular insect lands on probably the leaves or something, probably thinking it wants to suck nectar. It might trap that particular insect. Immediately it traps the insect, it takes it in, okay? Now once it is inside, it secretes enzymes, and these enzymes digest these food substances extracellularly. Once digestion takes place, digestion has to do with breaking it into simple absorbable forms. Once it is done, they start absorbing the nutrients from these insects or small animals. So that is how they carry out their mode of nutrition or obtaining nutrients. So this brings us to the end of these theory questions in using these past questions. Bye for now.